And we back. We in day two of the draft, the holiday weekend, as I may say. It's your boy Mike and your boy Mike back at it, just kind of doing a first round review of day one. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good. I'm doing real good actually. It was a good
That's
round. It was a good round one, and now we got a bunch of good players still left on the board for round two. So it's exciting. It's exciting. So what I was thinking we would do here today, because we don't need to go through every pick. We're gonna do individual team recap videos. Is we're just gonna kind of give a general overview of like what we thought of the draft in general, the first round, and then we're kind of pick three things for each or three picks each that we thought were particularly interesting. So off that, what were your general kind of thoughts on the draft?
my first initial thought was the first half of the picks were boring. It fell very in order. It's probably the most predictable top 16 you've seen in a long time. And I think that speaks to maybe part of this pandemic that we have going on. That valuations were actually based off film for the first time ever. And I thought that was really cool and something that I think caught my eye. Unless you're Mike Mayock and the Raiders, then that is not not true for you. But I don't know what you watch him. But for the rest of the top 16, I thought it was very predictable. Some good picks all around, and I can't be too mad at too many of them.
Yeah, I thought I kind of had the same takeaway. It was almost like a tale of two drafts, because I thought 1 through 16, 1 through 15 was like very kind of by the books. Like, I mean, there were obviously some exceptions. I didn't think Andrew Thomas was going to go that high, or I thought Henry Ruggs maybe was going to be the third receiver off the board. But like, I thought that was like that player pool was very consistent with what it should have been. But
Yeah.
from 16 through 32, there were there are some interesting picks to say the least. Like I think and I think what makes that super interesting is that now you have a whole like I mean there's almost like 20 guys now that people might and I can see why you'd have first round grades on that are falling into the second round. So those first 16, 15 teams that got good first round like really good first round picks, now they're going to be able to almost double up. So that's kind of what I think is really interesting about tonight. In terms of like the three things that we found interesting. So what was kind of your first takeaway or your first pick?
My favorite pick probably the whole draft was number 28, Baltimore Ravens, Patrick Queen. Absolute steal. And it fits. It was the best player available at probably the biggest hole for already a top caliber team. It makes just way too much sense. It's literally a plug and play, day one starter, Pro Bowl potential, and you got him at 28. There's not much you can say there. That's just a good team making a good pick.
And he was gift wrapped to him too. That's the thing. Like
Absolutely.
the fact that Seattle took a linebacker just ahead of them and and they didn't take Patrick Queen was just it was insane to me. And
Yeah.
I know we kind of talked about this during the mocks, but with that D line that you have, Derek Wolfe, Calais Campbell, Brandon Williams, those are space eaters that are going to take up double teams. And now you have maybe the best guy in the draft to capitalize on that. That's just a perfect.
Uh,
That's just a perfect fit, man. In terms of mine, my first one, we'll go the Dallas Cowboys at 17. I man, CD Lamb adds something that offense. I mean, it's already been one of the most dynamic offenses in the league with Amari, Zeke, Gallup. Now what you did is you just replaced Randall Cobb with CD Lamb. Like that is nuts to me. Do you think that is now the best offense in the league?
Pretty damn close. Pretty damn close to, if not. I think I'd say just weapons wise, pure talent wise on that offense. I'd say yes. They obviously have a hole at center, but the weapons that Dak Prescott doesn't need to do much in that offense.
No.
And it's one of my biggest issues with Dak Prescott is he's never had to do that much, but now he really don't have to do that much. I think CeeDee Lamb to be able to create space, get yards after the catch. I think it's added dynamic. It gives that offense so many weapons. I don't know how you stop it. You pick one weapon, you have two more coming at you. If three, if you count Gallup. I'm not sure I count Gallup. But it's nasty to say the least.
And well, the thing is it kind of goes off what you just said. Like you have three actual, and maybe Gallup's not in the same conversation, but you have at least two guys that are potentially like annual Pro Bowl guys, and you have Ezekiel Elliott running the ball. That is just scary. And
Yeah.
I know they have a bunch of needs on defense, but if the other team can't stop you, I mean, there is some value in that. So
Yeah.
off that, what is your second kind of take?
My second take would be probably pick 24, the Saints picking Cesar Ruiz. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That their current starting center right now is Eric McCoy, who they drafted in the second round of last year. Their guards are Larry Warford, Andres Pete, who they just signed to a long-term contract. I just don't get where he fits. It could seem like a first round. He's sitting for a season, and then, as we talked about a little bit, a replacement for Larry Warford next year when his contract's up. I just don't understand spending that kind of quality pick there for an interior lineman, which is a stretch as is, for a player that also might not play this year. It doesn't make too much sense to me, especially saying next year, wherever you may be picking in the late 20s to early 30s. You probably could have got the best interior offensive lineman next year at the same range, and it could have been an easy plug and play. It's easy place for rookies to start. So that pick probably is one of my biggest head scratchers for not a bad player, but just not a great fit for me.
Yeah, and like the thing is, I do kind of wonder if maybe they're going to try and trade Warford or cut Warford this year. It didn't really seem like there was much incentive based off like the dead money. But kind of to your point, we talked during our mock draft that they didn't have very many holes, but very many still means they had some. Like I just looked up their depth chart. It's like you have David Onyemata at nose tackle, Kiko Alonso at middle linebacker. So right there on the board, you still had Patrick Queen or Jordan Brooks. You know, you easily could have upgraded at middle linebacker off of Kiko Alonso, and I think that would have made your team so much better in the short and long term, if that makes sense.
I totally agree.
My second takeaway was John Lynch at 13. That was fantastic what he did there, because realistically we were talking about how the 49ers didn't have very many holes, and the ones that they did have, they were going to have the picks to fill them. Well, basically they're sitting at 13, and they're able to say like, we will take Tristan Wirfs, we will take Jerry Jeudy, we'll take CeeDee Lamb, we will take Javon Kinlaw, we'll take whoever you want, and they're able to leverage that and force Tampa Bay to give up a fourth-round pick to move up to get Tristan Wirfs. I just thought that was masterful by John Lynch. And this is now the second time he's done that. He did that with Mitch Trubisky a couple of years ago, going with the Bears going from 3 to 2. I just thought that stood out to me like a sore thumb, because on the other hand, you had teams like the Lions or Giants at the top where Bob Quinn and Dave Gettleman weren't able to create that value, and they weren't able to, maybe not stick a line in the sand and say we're going to take Tua, but like you'd think that they would be able to convince the Dolphins that the Chargers want them, or the Chargers the Dolphins want them, or both of them that the that the Jaguars are moving up, and then not to mention teams like the Steelers and Patriots who have future first-round picks that could move up. I just thought that was a great job on John Lynch. What was your kind of thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And my next one was going to be the Lions and Giants incompetency of being able to create a market for their pick. So I think it just speaks to the level of how the 49ers can create market for their pick for just one less. And they got an easy fourth-round pick. They probably got the best player on their board at that position still at 14 in Kinlaw. It just makes it really does show you the gap between some of these GMs.
Yeah.
Good teams, it really separates the men from the boys, the teachers from the students. And John Lynch is a teacher that is a man. And I'm not saying he took advantage of the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers actually should have traded up for that spot. I think the player made sense for them. I think they couldn't afford to lose him. They just Lynch's ability to kind of piggyback them off probably some other teams a little bit lower in the draft. Like, hey, Wirfs is going to go here, and create that market to get that fourth-round pick, I think was impressive.
And we were kind of talking in the draft where it's like there's a scenario where they could easily take Tristan Wirfs and plug and play him at right guard in their zone run scheme and be much improved this year. And then Joe Staley, who's going to be 36 years old in August, when he retires, you just kick him outside. And that's the thing. So maybe the Dolphins and Chargers they didn't think that either one was interested in the other, and they knew the Lions weren't going to take a quarterback. That could be it as well. But I just thought that was a really good job on John Lynch. So do you have a third one then? Now that I kind of stole yours with the Lions.
I probably got three more, but I think
Oh
one,
yeah.
obviously the Jordan Love situation, but I think that's been touched upon pretty good. I think one that I find interesting is the Dolphins.
Ooh.
Everyone's praising the Dolphins for their three picks. And while I agree, the point that they could stick at five, they got probably the quarterback they wanted, didn't need to trade other assets. I think it's impressive. But where I don't consider them winners is their next two picks. And I think those are getting a little thrown under the bus.
Yeah.
They really don't make too much sense. The corner they took, Noah, I'm not even going to try to butcher
Oh
his
yeah.
name,
Yeah. Don't try it.
Ojabui.
Don't try it. Yep.
Um, I'm not sure what the purpose of taking a first round corner when you already have the top two paid corners in the league. It doesn't make too much sense to me, especially when the best player available on the board was likely a position that you need because you need a lot of fucking help. So I didn't get that pick there. And then also Austin Jackson. It was too early for Austin Jackson to go 18. If you would have actually picked him with your third first round pick, I think it makes sense. It's a position of need. It would have been okay value, but 18, it was just too early. So those two, I really scratched my head. I don't think they gave. I think you had a real chance to help out Tua whenever he actually does hit the field, and I don't think they did a great job with it.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you because if you're the Dolphins, I totally understand the initiative of you need to protect Tua, but protecting Tua doesn't just mean actually getting people who can block for Tua. It means getting people he can throw to, getting people who are threats on the ground. And I mean, there were so many weapons that you could have taken at 18 that I just don't think that Austin Jackson, I don't think that his value is worth that pick. Maybe it would have been a great pick at 30, but I don't, and I'm not even sure if it would have been there. But at 18, I thought it was a reach. And then at 30, I don't know how you have the two, I don't want to say the two best corners in the league, but the two highest paid corners in the league. And you lose Rashad Jones, and we're sitting here with Xavier McKinney and Grant Delpit, and you have the number one safety still on the board, and you'd rather take what I want to deem as more of a luxury pick when you don't have luxury right now. You have needs. So I thought they could have helped Tua more by getting him a receiver, and then maybe today early you would go like Josh Jones or another offensive lineman, and then at if you do want to address defense at 30, you could have went safety there, or even maybe linebacker. I just thought that they were kind of off base and how they addressed their needs, I guess. In terms of my last one, man, you kind of stole mine. I actually do want to talk about Green Bay. I know you said we weren't going to talk about it. I kind of do want to talk about it because to me that is I just don't understand how you have who some people deem is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and I know we see him twice a year being Lions fans. I don't know how you can continue to trot out the same. I don't want to say garbage because those receivers aren't garbage. They have a place in the league, but they're not. Their place isn't as number two receivers. Scantling, Geronimo Allison, and Alan Lazard are not number two receivers. I don't know how you keep trotting out these not old, but these insufficient weapons. You have no tight end. We saw what Jimmy Graham did for them last year. Nothing. You haven't replaced him. You have Jay Sternberger, who I don't really think is that great. And it's literally just Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. And they were an NFC championship team. And instead of trying to build upon that and become a Super Bowl team, you sit back and you're like, okay, we're going to take Jordan Love. So now maybe Jordan Love is going to stimulate something in Aaron Rodgers and he's going to throw for 5,000 yards next year. Maybe that's what they think they need. I I I just disagree. I think there's so many ways you could have went there. And maybe tonight they'll trade up and get like a Michael Pittman or a Laviska Shenault, and maybe I'll sound dumb, but that was you just didn't need that at 26. If you think Aaron Rodgers is going to play till he's 39 years old, 38 years old, unless he's retiring either before the season or after the season, you don't need that pick. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, and I I think me and you both thought wide receiver it made sense. I think in general fans thought it made sense. I think it's their lack of drafting and actually being able to produce constant any decent skill players other than Devontae Adams. It's constant, it's consistent, and they really needed help there, especially in this draft where the wide receiver class was plentiful and you couldn't do it. Instead, you probably pissed off your best asset at best.
Yeah.
It's aggravating, and we also thought another position they could have went there, and I guess it makes sense after seeing the next two picks in order was linebacker. They've lost Jake Matthews, they lost Martinez, so I thought linebacker made a lot of sense. Patrick Queen would have been a good BPA pick, but
would have been perfect.
They all, and it made sense when they traded up there, especially saying that the next two picks were linebackers. I think that's what you thought it was probably leaning, but obviously it's not where they went. I don't know the thought. And I guess another thing with this is why did they have to trade up to draft Love? Where I guess I would love to hear what the conversation was on that they felt the need to have to trade up.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, so they jumped Tennessee, Baltimore, and Seattle. So what do those three teams have in common? They all have quarterbacks signed long term. Two of them need a receiver, in my opinion, in Baltimore and Tennessee, and then two of them could use linebackers in the Baltimore and Seattle. So okay, the two best players on the board are, and our two biggest needs are receiver and linebacker, and somehow you move up, you give up other assets to get somebody who's not going to help your team this year. Just wild. So outside of those, obviously we're going to cover all of these in the individual team recap videos that we do. Who's kind of like your most exciting player to watch going into day two here?
Ooh, I'd have to say I'm a big fan of Yetur Gross-Matos. I think raw athlete, had solid production. And if you watch film, he doesn't move back very often. I think he's good size with good speed combo, and I don't know why an edge like that is still on the board.
Yeah, I think there's so many guys. Like I said, I think there's probably 20. One that's really interesting to me, actually, is AJ Epinesa. And when I was doing a scouting report for AJ back in November, December, and I thought that he was, at this point, he was considered a top 10 pick. And I said that he wouldn't be a good top 10 pick. He actually should be a mid-teens to early 20s pick because he's not as dynamic of a pass rusher, and he has some flaws. He would be a good fit for a 3-4. And I was kind of bagging on him there, but if you can get him in the 30s, like that is such a good value, especially for a team who runs kind of like a hot defense, 3-4, 4-3, whatever you decide to run. If you're a little bit both, I know we're big Lions fans. I think he would fit perfectly on a team like the Lions or the Patriots or even like the Packers, teams like that, who can use kind of these versatile set pieces in their front seven. So other than that, do you have anything else, or are you good to go?
I think that's good. Let's get into round 2 and 3, and we'll probably touch base after that, see how the teams kind of get that full product together.
Yep, absolutely. All right, guys. See you later.
Doses.